So when I think about my reasons for starting MILF Ministry podcast, it was really about me being vulnerable, sharing my stories of life after divorce, dating, having sex, being comfortable, being intimate, being comfortable communicating what I needed for sexual pleasure, being comfortable just in my own skin, being comfortable emotionally around someone again. And instead of blabbing without a filter, I chose to filter my private thoughts, edit them, and, upload them into a podcast. My last episode that I filmed was in 2020, in the very beginning of the pandemic, and I had full intentions to relaunch again in 2021. As you all see, it's now 2024, and I'm just now getting back to it. And it's taken me a while to just be comfortable to share. I've been through so many things, as you can imagine, what you all have been through since 2020 to 2024 as individuals. I'm the type of person where sometimes I'm going through things that I just need to go through them. I don't even really want to talk about them or it's hard to process. I need to go through it and then sit back and reflect. And sometimes I'm going through things and I'm fine being comfortable in the middle of what I'm going through, but there was just a lot of things going on with me and I didn't want to talk about it. And at the same time, the podcast industry was shifting away from audio only to video. And I didn't want to be on camera. Like, I'm very transparent. So if I was having a bad day, you guys would see it, you would feel it, you would hear it. And I wanted to share the best of myself. Even if I'm having a hard time, I wanted to be safe and feel safe enough within my own spirit to be vulnerable. And I just didn't feel that. So anyway, now I'm back. Part of what happened during the transition was I was going through a few personal challenges, and the podcast industry was shifting. 2021 in particular was really the year where it became crystal clear that if you wanted to have a successful podcast, you needed to have a video element. And I just personally didn't feel comfortable being on screen. It was too much going on. I just didn't feel comfortable. And it took me a long time to remember why I started the podcast in the first place. And the whole point of it was to be vulnerable and to be open. And now I want to shift formats. I want to shift gears and make sure that I'm actually having conversations, because what would happen is I'd have my solo podcast episodes and then I'd do live events and people would get to experience a different version of me, a more high energy version of me. And people also felt safe talking, sharing all these things with me. And so people kept saying, oh, I want to be on your podcast. I want to talk. I want to do an episode. And I never really took the time to figure that part of it out, of like what it meant to set up interviews and structure them and film and edit, and how to handle if people don't show up on time or at all. And so going through some of those challenges was also an issue of like, how to set that up, how to relaunch, how to edit, how to store the footage, making sure people were okay with whatever we discussed and recorded. So long story short, I did start to record again in 2023, I want to say. Not really consistently, but I did record some episodes, but I never looked at them. I never edited them. I just kind of sat there. Because I kept thinking about, how do I really want to reintroduce myself? And what do I want to talk about? And, where do I even begin? So much time has passed. So where do I even begin? And when you're someone that has like a type A personality, I started to think about all the things that didn't even really matter. I thought about like, okay, what's my new set going to look like? What kind of camera am I going to use? What kind of lights am I going to set up? And I just got lost in a rabbit hole of setting up the podcast as opposed to tapping in with myself and thinking about what do I want to talk about? What do I think people want to hear? Who do I want to talk to? Who have I been observing that I think could really bring great value? So for example, whether you're a comedian, a songwriter, a businesswoman, stay-at-home mom, what is happening in your life that I think we can have an interesting conversation about, but also fun, vulnerable, whatever we wanted to talk about. And like I said, I spent so much time on podcast equipment that I never really sat down and thought about what I wanted to actually curate and how I wanted to present myself. And I just got lost in the sauce. It was just like, okay, girl, what are you doing? You have all these things in a Google Doc of like what you're going to do, but you haven't thought about the most important thing, which is the content. And so I had to still myself again and say, what is the purpose? What is the purpose? So I want to share the story of one of my walks last week. I saw two beautiful butterflies, orange butterflies flying together. And I jokingly said to myself, oh, these butterflies are on a date. And I thought to myself, we need other people. You know what I mean? Like humans need humans. And at such a crazy time, like we've been, unintentionally isolated since 2020. And so many people, myself included, are struggling to get back to a sense of community. So many people are looking for ways to reconnect since the pandemic kind of fractured how we interact and fractured our circle group, our friend group. And I've been thinking a lot about not only just the butterflies on the date, meaning that you need love, like romantic love, but the butterflies on the date could just be two friends hanging out. I just thought it was cool that I saw two insects, floating around, enjoying life together for an extended period of time. And it just was a reminder of a sense of community overall. And I've been thinking about how I can play my part to do more things, to invite community, invite people together, bring different people from different circles of my life together. I have so many different circles. I have people in my comedy circle. I have people in my African dance circle. I have people in my filmmaking circle. I have people in my music circle. I have people in my legal circle. I have people in my mom circle. I have people in my podcast circle. You get the point. I have so many circles of people that I know, but I just feel like with the pandemic, we didn't all stay connected. So there may be pockets of us that interact or text or say how you doing or meet for brunch once a year or something like that. But things have just not been the same for me personally since the pandemic. So once again, seeing those butterflies on a date was just a reminder of how much we need community. And I'd say this summer was like literally one of the hardest summers that I've had, living in LA. Very, very challenging mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. So many things were happening at once. And the only thing that was helping me hold on to my sanity was this comedy show I was working on. And something kind of beautiful and spiritual happened. I started to kind of like realize, oh yes, you are someone that loves art. And working in comedy just reminded me of like, you love music, you love comedy, you love poetry, you love to dance. You love all of these things. You love the process of making a song. You love the process of making a film. And these are all elements that can be brought up, on your podcast. All of these people in all these different industries, you can talk to about their life and how they function as a mother or how they function as people that love MILFs, that love women. And it got me thinking about what was the purpose of MILF Ministry? And the purpose of MILF Ministry was really about me learning to connect with my honey, internally, and engaging with it in such a way that I drew sweetness. I drew more sweetness. I was also giving more sweetness. So giving more sweetness to my friends, giving more sweetness to my child, giving more sweetness to the universe, but also presenting myself in a very sweet and happy and jovial way. And it just was a reminder of like, what are the things that I was doing when I was doing my podcast? Like whether it was taking a bath and soaking in a bath, or actually eating physical honey, or working on a nice playlist that helped me feel relaxed, or hanging out with my friends and just relaxing, like really, really taking the time to relax and talk about life and de-stress, and whether we wanted to have a drink or smoke, whatever we wanted to do to de-stress, these are the things that we were intentionally doing. And I didn't think about how much COVID kind of separated me from that. As I was saying earlier, my original goal for MILF Ministry was to re-engage with my honey, connect with my honey and connect with my joy. And I realized the number one thing that was helping me do that was small steps of self-care. I did a lot more walking. I started taking African dance class. So I was moving my body, but also I was losing weight. And, just like the shape of my body was kind of going back to how I looked and felt comfortable and, felt more beautiful. But also I remember talking to my doctor and they were just like, if you don't move, you will feel sad. Like you need to move your body. You need to get sun. You need to get air. It's good for your mental health. And I think sometimes, especially as mothers, we get so inundated with the day-to-day of like, did we do this? Did we work? Are the bills paid? Is this going on? Especially if you're a single mother and it really is all on you. You just tend to focus on taking care of everything and everyone outside of yourself. I'm blessed to have a very supportive family. So they really helped me navigate living in LA and taking care of my daughter. And I'm blessed to have an extremely supportive friend group that helps me enjoy life and take care of my daughter. I have a really great support system. So as I was taking time to heal and date again and explore life again, I started to do simple things. Like I said, walk more, African dance. I started to take more baths and sugar scrubs and go to the spa and make sure that my nails were done and my hair was done. And once again, go to brunch, just do things that I wanted to do, travel, take my mom on trips, take my daughter on trips. I was just doing these things to enjoy life. And I started to realize the smallest things matter. Something as simple as soaking in a bath and lighting a candle for yourself is very inexpensive. It's a very inexpensive form of self-care. Something as simple as having one thing that you do to treat yourself every week is it could be something that's $25, $30. Going to the spa in LA is $30. Taking a hike with your girlfriend can be free. Like you can call up a friend and take a hike. Sitting down and just spending 2 hours at the beach. Especially this summer, as I was having a really hard time, I had to reconnect and be very intentional about what I did for my spirit. So there are things that I used to do all the time before the pandemic, going to the spa, hair done, nails done, shopping, all this stuff that I just wasn't doing anymore. For so many reasons. One, where am I going? I work from home. Sometimes it would be financial. Sometimes I just literally couldn't afford to do the things that I was used to doing. And then I had to remind myself, some of the things I want to do don't cost that much money. It's literally about me taking the time and allocating the resources to do that. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes I needed to leave work 2 hours early and sit down at the beach for 2 hours for my own mental health. just to have a little bit of peace, a little bit of silence. Sometimes I needed to take a walk, not in a neighborhood that I was used to, maybe go to one of my favorite parks and take a walk. And when you are responsible for everyone and everything, there's so many times where you don't allow yourself to preemptively take a break. So, what was happening was that I was completely stressed out and I just wouldn't care about anything, and I would go to the beach or go to the spa or whatever. And then I started to say to myself, what would happen if you just preemptively do these things? Like, make sure that you're taking a walk every day. Set aside time to go to the beach. Set aside time to take a hike. Set aside time you can go to the beauty supply store and get some fingernail polish and paint your nails yourself. Even if you can't afford to go to the shop. So I stopped thinking about excuses and started thinking about my self-care. You can go and get some Epsom salt that's lavender scented for like under $5 from Target. And you can set aside, you can get some tea light candles from the Dollar Tree and set aside time to do some of the things that you used to do that cost more money. And I said, oh, okay. So self-care is self-care. No matter your budget, self-care is self-care. I need to stop and I need to be disciplined about taking the time for myself so that I can reconnect with my honey. And a beautiful thing started to happen. Once I decided that I was going to take time for myself and for my spirit, I promise you, every single time I did that, I would be blessed in some sort of way. I would run into a comedian. I would run into a musician. I would see butterflies. I would just feel better. I would go somewhere and people say, oh my gosh, your skin is glowing, and it just reminded me that when I stop and take time for myself, I automatically and instinctively cross paths with the things that I'm in alignment with. I cross paths with the people that I want to meet anyway. I can see the beautiful things like a butterfly, flying around, and just notice that they're, resting on some flowers. I can stop and smell the flowers. And it sounds so simple, but that matters for my mental health, my relaxation, because I'm not just in my head thinking about what's next. I'm stilling my spirit. I am stopping and looking at a butterfly, looking at their colors, noticing them on a butterfly day, reminding myself that we need human connection. I stop and think, what can I do to facilitate more human connection? Through events that I do, through people that I call and stay in contact with, through even the messages that I'm recording. What can I do to connect with more people? That's what I started to think. And when I started to think like that, I became less focused on relaunching perfectly and more focused on relaunching authentically. And so here I am, recording content, trying to reintroduce myself to you all, and, getting back into the flow of things, into the swing of things. And when I tell you it takes a lot for me to sit down and talk to y'all, it takes a lot. I like to talk. I don't necessarily like to talk on camera. But we live in a new world where it doesn't matter what I like. If I want to engage, I have to be on camera. So here I am.